Just a short distance from the famous Bonneville Flats. We may not be going quite as fast, but here at Utah Motorsports campus, we are definitely going to see some speed for the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West by Yokohama series. And the drivers are definitely ready to go for qualifying here today, as you can see, getting ready to take off out there. I'm Joe Peak, once again here with Ashley Freiberg, ready to take you through this great bit of racing this weekend. Ashley, I'm excited for this because it's definitely a much more wide open track than what we saw in round one.
Yeah, I think actually this track also has quite a few passing opportunities as well. Big straightaway here heading down into turn one, which is pretty high speed as well. It's about a fourth gear corner heading down through turn two, and turn three is quick as well. So a lot of elevation here as well, going through the attitude corners in the back, which will be pretty exciting, and some pretty big brake zones in the back as well, which will be exciting to see once we race later today.
Yeah, and we can see a few of the pictures from practice and testing earlier on in this weekend, which saw a little bit of drama. Unfortunately, we've already lost one car even before we got to qualifying, but for the most part, everybody's been able to keep it clean and getting some valuable information. Considering some of the drivers have not been here before. You heard Ashley talk about some of the legendary corners that we've got here. Sunset Bend, not that Sunset Bend, but still a fast one coming down out of the opening front stretch. And then you look at places such as Scream, which is the exit out of Workout there down at the bottom, going to be a quick one for the drivers. Then potential passing zones there into Black Rock at turn 5 or through Right Hook, possibly. You mentioned the attitudes as well, as we get a nice little overview of this place and sprawling facility. Even the karts, which we got to do last night, some of the crew.
Oh man, I bet that was an adventure.
Yes, it definitely was.
You can see everybody heading out for their warm-up laps. It takes a couple laps to kind of get those tires up to temp before they start laying down their flyers. It's so key to make sure that you also find a nice space when you're out here trying to get a clear lap for your qualifying run. So you do have to have 2 fast laps, one for race 1 today and for race 2 tomorrow.
Exactly. So you can't just go out there and get the one done and sit on it. You have to keep out and keep going. Now, for those not familiar with the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West, we will have 4 classes technically, but it's more like 3 out here, as we will have the 992 Cup cars, and then we will have the 992 Masters also in the Cup cars. There's no difference between the vehicles. They are the same machinery. It is just the license of the drivers. And then we will have the Cayman category, and we also have Cayman Masters, but there's 5 cars total competing in that, so you can essentially consider it the lone Cayman class, all racing together for the overall finish. So I think some of them just getting their first hot laps started out here. Let's hope that this is uninterrupted as well, because that second practice earlier this morning, I was talking about it, Ashley, we had Patrick Mulcahy wreck early on, and they literally had about half the practice gone just like that.
Yeah, it's tough. Although, honestly, it's been a pretty eventful weekend because they've had the track mostly to ourselves out here, which they've had about 5 practice sessions, which is really cool to see. But there were actually quite a few teams this morning that were planning on doing a qualifying simulation before that red flag came out. So for a lot of teams, we'll be kind of throwing a dart out into the wind to see where their car lands, since they might not have gotten a read this morning. So
exactly,
we'll see.
Well, you mentioned it. It's such a stark contrast because you were with the North America Series out at Barber 2 weeks ago, 6 different series racing in the same weekend. And like you said, this is the only series out here racing in Utah this weekend. So everybody is basically focused on these cars, and we watch from on board with James Lee. He felt confident, he said, coming into this one. He and his teammate, after their tussles last race, he said they laughed it off. So there was no drama coming from that. There's no ill feelings. They enjoyed it, and he even teased that Dennis joked it's his turn to shove him off this at this track.
Oh, boy. Yeah, you always have to have that friendly team competition, team environment for sure. So It's cool to see that those two didn't take anything personally after that.
Yeah, they seem to get along pretty well, and checking out some of our drivers through the back half of the circuit, a little bit windier and twistier through there, some of the slower turns, what few they have at this circuit, heading up into one of my favorite names of the corners here, Witchcraft. Everybody knows I am a nerd about naming corners, and every single corner is named here, which makes me extremely happy.
Yeah, there are some pretty funny ones, like the different attitude corners. I like how the last one of those is called Bad Attitude. So I'm wondering if that one's a little bit more on the hairy side when you're driving it. When I was talking to Laura Eli earlier, she was saying if on sticker tires you could potentially get those last two corners of the attitudes flat out.
Ooh.
So I'd imagine it does get a little hairy.
Interesting. Yeah, that's impressive. So we're watching, I think that's Conley and Parnagian heading around the last two corners here. We do have a few times in. Right now, Blake McDonald is your provisional pole sitter overall, but we've got Jim Walsh on the pole for the Masters class as well. Remember, he did well putting it on the pole, or at least qualifying high at Spring Mountain, but then wasn't able to capitalize it in either of the races. I imagine that left him pretty frustrated.
Yeah, and then we've got, Blake ran a great lap there at a 51.5. 7/10 behind is Casey Dennis. Although we'll see as time goes on here, people will be getting some faster laps later on, but super fast lap to be in the 51s.
Eli Kogan looking the quickest down in the Caymans right now. As for the Cayman Masters, Michael Galke leading that. Kogan still racing that red 50 that he's actually borrowed from his mom. That's not a joke. He's borrowed it from his mother to race. That is a very loving mother to be willing to let him go out in her car.
I love that it's a family affair as well.
Yeah.
Looks like Kyle Washington just laid down a good lap there in the Masters class, bumping his way up into second. Actually, within a few hundredths behind P1 there, Jim Walsh. So that's going to be some good racing there.
Absolutely. And if I recall, Kyle and Jim definitely had a bit of a battle back at the last race as well. Didn't end well for Jim, but Kyle came away with some good results there. As we continue to watch Parnagian just kind of ride behind. That front stretch is pretty long. I mean, do you think any sort of slipstream would be advantageous here if you could time it right, or is that kind of not worth it?
Yeah, the 992s actually have quite a bit of aero, so if you can tuck in behind a car, the draft is pretty significant. So when you're looking for, there's a few of these guys just within a few tenths of each other. It's definitely worth, if you could time it right, making it work.
Conley and Parnagian not improving that time by riding on board with Luke French as well. He's sitting down 6th in class, but 10th overall. And it looks like he is showing it about 2.3 seconds off the pole time, but needs to make up about a quarter of a second, I should say, to catch Reinhold Kron, who is ahead of him overall, but not in the same class. Even still, that better starting position would definitely help him, and he doesn't go quicker that last lap, unfortunately.
Jim Walsh, we're actually on board with him now. He just ran a killer lap at 52.2, right up there with the top two overall. So
wow.
He's on a mission right now.
That works out excellent for him because that puts both Conley and Parnagian between him and Kyle Washington. So again, using the difference of the classes between them to try and create a buffer. And again, though they are not fighting for points with those other cars, they create an interesting dynamic out on the track for sure. 28 of Kinsey just went by. He stays 3rd in the Caymans right now, down there in the number 28.
On board here with Kyle Washington, currently sitting 2nd in class, 6th overall. He's just 4/10 behind P1, which is easy to, well, not so easy, but we're at a 3-mile racetrack, so 4/10 is not much. It's maybe a couple hundredths per corner. So
yeah, this is a decently long lap for sure. I think that is Walsh actually coming into pit lane, it looks like, right now. So he looks like he is either just pausing and regrouping, or he might feel like he's good enough at this stage before he gets back out there. I think, from what I'm seeing, the only drivers we're missing times for are Woods, Harback, and Mulcahy, but we know Mulcahy won't be out there. Harback probably wants to get one down. This is actually his first time racing competitively. He's done track days, but he's getting the chance here with Black Sheep Motorsports to kind of cut his teeth.
Yeah, I was talking to Kevin Woods earlier. He said he was having some transmission issues. Actually, that's him right there with his flashers on, so I'm wondering if they're breaking it in or if maybe it's still he's having some problems out there. So hopefully he can get a couple laps in at least, but we'll see how that goes for Kevin.
Interesting. So, yeah, that's not a great way to go about it. And Greg Herback just flashed past us, so it looks like he's going to get some times on the board at this stage. No real point in trying to wait around on this one, although I have to imagine, because I don't believe there's many competitive series that visit here. There's obviously track days, so I wonder if the track will grip up quite a bit more as the weekend goes on.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Certainly, Yokohama tire rubber on top of more rubber always helps. Also clearing out any dust or dirt that's on the track as well. So we can see Woods still driving around there. Hopefully he's just kind of feeling it out and all things are good. We still have 13 minutes to go.
Yeah, still plenty of time. And that car, yeah, the flashers aren't. I wonder if he doesn't know that the flashers are still on.
I don't know. We'll see.
Hard to tell. Yeah, we might have to wait until he comes back around to pit entry and see if he brings it back in, because he could just be on an outlap here getting the car warmed up before he gets going. And I think we're getting visuals of him from out here. We can see some of the track from where we sit at the booth, but not all of it. So we can kind of track where they are at times around this circuit, but just have to keep our eyes peeled. And as he comes around, I think that's him. Looks like he's staying on track. Yeah, that is definitely him because flashers are on.
Yeah, it looks like he's starting to push here. So, oh, and he goes right up into P3 in class.
Wow.
So I would say the transmission's working pretty well right now.
Okay, then.
Yeah, good stuff. Good
Drama
to see him out
averted.
there. Yeah.
That, I believe, is Reinhold Kron that we just saw flashing past in the blue and yellow as well as he comes down. Oh, and he spins. This is through Sunset Bend, so pushing a little bit too hard. That is a decreasing radius corner. Looks like he may have got a little bit in the dirt, but takes off.
Yeah, good thing that was all clean. Getting right back to it. Right now, actually, like you were mentioning, having a little more rubber down on the track is primary time to go out and run some quick laps here if you're just starting out on your sticker tires.
Very fast set of corners to kick this off all the way up to Scream there where he exits and then finally gets to the braking of Black Rock. And looks like he's carrying on fine, so I guess crisis averted on that one, as hopefully the tires are still good. Just saw Laura pull into pit lane. Where is Laura Eli right now? She's down in fifth, yeah.
Fifth overall.
Now, if I recall correctly, this kind of was her MO back at Spring Mountain too, because I don't remember her being all that high up there in qualifying, but made some passes eventually and worked her way up to her 2 wins. So I wonder if she's going to kind of repeat that she set it up for the race, not so much for qualifying.
Yeah, she was one of the teams I was mentioning earlier when the session went red. She was just about to start her qualifying simulation, so she definitely runs a lot on older tires, so that's why she's super strong later on in the race distance once those tires start to wear.
Interesting. So we watch them come through the last few corners here.
Jumped up into 4th overall. Only a 10th off of Jim.
Wow.
So he's feeling pretty good there. I'm sure he's got a little bit of red mist trying to make up for the loss of all that track time earlier. I think he had transmission issues almost all weekend.
And these shots really show just how gorgeous this place is. That's one thing that struck me as soon as I got here. I lived sort of in this region for a while in Colorado, so I do have a lot of love for the mountains, but the absolutely being surrounded on all sides by mountains is so spectacular.
Yeah, it definitely is quite the backdrop.
So I think this is French maybe that we've got on screen here coming around. Yeah, that's Luke French working his way through what looks like through the first few corners and then out through Scream. Where is French right now in terms of time? He's 6th overall, which is where he was last time we looked at him. So he has not improved on that 1:53.9 and still needs to make up those same 0.26 seconds to catch up to Reinhold Kron, who we know had a bit of a spin.
Yeah, and once you get to the peak of the tire, it's really challenging to kind of get back there with your lap times. So you really have to push within those 2 or 3 laps that the tire is really at its maximum. And then you can see a lot of drivers have actually already pulled into pit lane because you don't want to run too many laps on your tires because you have to save these exact sets for the race 1.
Yeah, that's a good point. So hopefully there's no problem with Reinhold's tires after he may have flat spotted them with that little bit of a spin. And you'll see little bits of dirt track around here. For those not familiar, they also have Nitro Rallycross that races here with a spectacular track inside of this track, including a jump that's directly in front of Ashley and I in the booth, which is something quite impressive to look at. So French going to come back around here. Not sure if he's on a quick one. Didn't look like he was hustling it all that much. He'll flash past us, and no, does not improve that time by. And if you're curious about how to keep track of those different classes, you can see on the tower on your left the white or gray. That is going to be the 992 Cups, and then the 992 Masters are the blue. And then you've got the yellow of our Caymans that are also down there towards the bottom. So that's going to be your slower class, still being led by Kogan. Galki is, 1.3 seconds off of Eli, so Kogan is flying today.
He sure is. Richard Kinsey, this will be his 2nd race weekend ever, so we do have quite a few newer racers in this series. So he's actually 3rd overall in the Cayman class, 2nd in his class.
Looks like they're checking out Reinhold's car, so wonder if they're just giving it the once over, make sure everything's okay after his little off. I'm trying to remember, is that a new paint scheme as well? Did he have that last time?
That is a new paint scheme.
I thought it looked new, so very snazzy looking with the various circles. I don't know what exactly he's going for. I'll have to go and ask him if there's a particular theme on that one. And another of our new drivers that you were talking about there, Greg Herback. Unfortunately, last on the field right now in 19th overall, 3rd in class, I guess 5th in the Caymans. But I did talk to him. He said, his expectations with this being his first one was just basically get to the checkered flag and try and improve his times by the end of the race, which I think sounds reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Caymans are not easy to drive fast, to really get it on the ragged edge and go for those quick laps. They're a challenge, and they're really fast. So it's awesome to see him out here. This is, like you said, his first race weekend, going straight to Porsche Sprint Challenge West Coast Series. So going big or going home.
He seems to be doing okay. I think he had no, he didn't have a spin. It was somebody else in practice. So I haven't seen any major dramas in any of the testing or practice. So that's always a plus if he's a safe pair of hands coming in. Now just probably needs to find a bit of the speed. And this is coming up through another good set of corner names, Wind Up, and then the last one is called Release. Yeah,
this is a tricky racetrack because there's not a ton of reference points out there. Like a lot of tracks, you have trees or some sort of, like I said, a reference that's outside of the track to kind of help you with your turn-in points, your braking points, and what have you. So this track is definitely a challenge. It's really high speed, a lot of interconnected corners, so your car placement is really crucial. So definitely a challenge, but fun.
It's very fun to ride on. I actually had a ride along with Elliot Forbes Robinson. For those that don't know, very, very well established race car driver from times gone by. Now acts as one of our stewards. He offered to take me out in the safety car, and he didn't. Well, I didn't feel like he held back to me, but after I got out and others said they were watching, he said, no, that was slow for him. So
it's I love it.
It's a hoot around here.
Yeah, and you can see some of these curbs were actually with James Lee here. Some of the curbs are usable, some maybe not so much. You see some of those apex curbs have a little bit of a curve to them, so when it comes to that, you just want to make sure you're hitting the curb at the right time and right place so it doesn't push the car too wide. Looks like a lot of the exit curbs here are pretty smooth, so a lot of people using those and maximizing your radius through the corner.
So Lee goes by, unable to go quicker than that 152, but that may have been a warm-up lap because that looks like that was a 219. So he could have just been trying to prep the cars for one last flyer here as he heads into turn one. Ooh, looked like it slid out a bit.
Yeah, anytime you're sliding, you're losing time. So like I was mentioning before, once you go past the peak of the tire, it's super hard to get back to it, although sometimes it works out. If the track rubbers up a little bit more as the session goes on, you can totally come in and just drop your tire pressures a little bit and try to go back for it. But it does look like he's got a bit of oversteer there. So we'll see what he puts together here. He's currently 5th in the pro class, 8th overall.
So he must have, I think he gained one then since we were talking about French, excuse me. So yeah, Lee's still in 5th. I think he was there before. Next one up is Kyle Washington, which is in the Masters. So he needs to get up to Parnagian as the next car, which actually isn't too far up. That's maybe about 2/10 to get up to Parnagian. So it won't take a whole lot, especially with how many corners you have around here to try and get himself within range of that.
Yeah, super competitive here up in the top 8 cars. Like you were saying, yeah, if he gained another 3/10, he'd go all the way up into P3 in class, which is not much time.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's definitely small margins on this one. So he comes through those last 2 turns, one of the few spots where you've got a bit of elevation change here, kind of falls down, and banking too. That's the other thing that struck me is I'm glad that they gave some camber to these turns. Let's see what the 255 does this time by over the timing line. He'll cross, and no, he was shy on that one. So those little hiccups early on in the lap definitely seem to have hurt him. Let's see if he stays on it this time through.
Yeah, he may have actually slowed down a little bit that lap. It actually does help to kind of cool the tires off while you're out there. So if you get a slide, just kind of get through the rest of the lap very slowly and not scrub your tires too much and then try to go after it the next lap.
Again, some incredible shots here of the facility that they've got at Utah Motorsports campus. Probably more well-known as former rendition, Miller Motorsports Park. Since it's changed hands, and they have just done incredible work here. Made some very cool, like we said, it's not just the racetrack, but the rallycross track. They've got the go-karting facility. I think they have stuff for dirt bikes as well, I saw over there. So lots and lots of stuff for motorsports enthusiasts of almost any stripes, really.
You know, it's funny. I think James actually might have the entire track to himself right now.
Let me check on that. See
nice and clear.
You are correct.
We have about a minute and a half remaining for qualifying here. Let's see what he puts together.
Well, at least there's nothing to distract him. Can really push as hard as he wants to try and improve on that 152.7. See if maybe he can catch Washington or maybe even Parnagian as finally around the last couple here. And to release, not bringing it in, he'll take that late apex onto the main straight, tracks all the way out and to the line. The clock will tell the tale. And no, he is shy by about 0.6 of the 52.7. He has enough time to do one more, and he's the only one that will be able to do so with only 40 seconds remaining and everybody else in the pit lane here. So, Ashley, I don't know. What do you think? Is with him already being on a push lap, is this not likely here?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what he sees on his dash. So we actually do get live timing within the car to show whether you're up on your previous best lap or maybe you're a little bit slower. So if I was already a 10th slower than my best lap, I would probably just slow it down and come back into pit lane because really what matters here is the race, thinking that longer term. But I think what he's trying to do is at least get in front of Kyle because of the different classes. So he does have one Masters class driver in between him and Sam. So I'm thinking that's probably his goal here. But again, you always want to think long term and think about the race.
Absolutely. So definitely glad you joined us here for qualifying for Utah Motorsports Campus Round 2 of Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West by Yokohama. And it looks like we're wrapping it up because it sounds like I think he is done out there. Yeah, he's not pushing from what we can tell. So thank you for being with us. We'll be back a little bit later this afternoon if you want to watch both on YouTube and Flow Racing. Here is the results that we have, the unofficial results for round number 2. Race 1 will be at 4 o'clock. Blake McDonald will start it from the pole position as Casey Dennis will begin in P2. Then you get to the pole position for the 992 Masters. Jim Walsh taking that one once again over Kevin Woods, who will be starting 4th, but also 2nd in that class. And you've got Josh Conley starting from 3rd, Parnagian in 4th, well as 5th and 6th overall on that one. Kyle Washington going to be starting P7 overall. James Lee then to his outside as Dmitry Novikov will start 9th. Laura Eli down in 10th. She'll have some work to do if she wants another win. Reinhold Kron will start from 11th as Luke French managed 12th. Then James Larkins, another new driver, starts from P13. Zweiback will be in 14th. And then, of course, Ashley, we get to the Caymans.
Yeah, on pole we have Eli Kogan in the overall pole position there for the Cayman class. Michael Galke is on pole in the Masters Cayman class, starting 2nd overall. Richard Kinsey in 2nd in the Masters class. He will be 3rd overall in the Caymans. Then you have Sean Kelashadi and Greg Herback in last.
So there is your field of 19 cars that will be taking part in this afternoon's race. Make sure to join us. We'll be back around 4 p.m. Mountain Time. So we'll look forward to you joining us here on Utah Motorsports Campus. Again, I'm Joe Peak, joined by Ashley Freiberg. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.